Welcome to Rex Arthur TV. This is the Rex Arthur Show, where we discuss LGBTQ issues with an LGBTQ perspective and an LGBTQ approach and a humanistic approach in an LGBTQ plus planet where each and every one of us belongs to one of the letters in the 10-letter sexual alphabet LGBTQIAAP, and living life, enjoying everyday life, being LGBTQIAAP. I like that phrase, enjoying everyday life. It's from a pastor, Joyce Meyer. Yes, it's very good to enjoy life, even whether you are suffering or are not suffering. The secret about life is to squeeze the joy out of it. That's why we have fun. We look for fun whether we are poor or rich, That's why we talk about LGBTQ issues. Because LGBTQ persons are also, much as there are some who are rich as LGBTQ persons, there are also those who are poor. And most of the times, justice is to help the poor. Yes, that's what people need to understand. Justice is mostly to the poor. It is mostly to the rich. The advantage they have is they can protect themselves from any violation of their rights. Like the right to privacy. A rich person can keep that right without fail, because he has his own house, he can have his own security, nobody can come into the house, and so he's okay. But a poor person may not have access to such security, and so the ease of violating his rights is very high. And so they run to courts of justice for justice. But I'm not trying to say rich people cannot be allowed to go to court. They are allowed to, because everybody can have an issue. Even a rich person can be violated, especially the LGBTQ, because people do not like rich people who are LGBTQ. They find they especially if you're in a homophobic society. So whenever we are delivering or liberating LGBTQ persons, we do not look at the economic status, because whether rich or poor, you are LGBTQ plus, And who said suffering means being poor? You can even be rich and you suffer from many things: mental suffering, emotional suffering, a lot of things. And who said that poor people don't get happy, they don't enjoy life? No, they do. I was talking to somebody about poor people, and I was saying, when you look at a poor person's life, he's a person who sometimes settles for that lifestyle because he has managed to live very well with little. And so he doesn't really push himself to become very rich. And this is very common in Africa. In Africa, sometimes when there's so many people are used to poverty, it reaches a point whereby you say, let's live life, just live life. And they go and drink beer from simple places. They have fun from the simple places. Even if it's sex work, the prices for sex work is the price that they can handle, and that's what you need to understand about poverty. Poverty is not sadness. It's just little money to acquire a high standard of living. Having little money to acquire a high standard of living. So these days, I'm not so fighting. In the past, you could be fighting rich people because you feel like they are letting the poor people down. Of course, there are some systems which need upgrading so that to allow everybody to participate in the economy. But generally, it's not, you don't solve problems by fighting somebody who is helping you. And this is why we're doing this video. We want to discuss about, of course, in an artistic way, we want to discuss about America, what's happening there, and I think America, I even wrote an article a long time ago that America is a bipolar country, or multipolar, or schizophrenic. Schizophrenic means split mind, schizophrenia. And when you look at America, it's a very divided yet united country. And that's what bipolarism is. You see, bipolarism is not you fighting a person. It is you fighting in yourself, because you have two ways of doing things, or you have two different ways of doing things and thinking. So it confuses you, because naturally a sane person is a unipolar person, in my view. Because when you're unipolar, you are able to, in my view, you have one way of doing things. However, that is, you being unipolar is not sanity, because you can even be bipolar and sane. By what I mean by that is, you are able to play both sides. Have you seen actors? There's an actor who is very good at being a villain and very good at being a hero, you know. And these days movies are so complicated. Like if you remember Tyler Perry and Madea, and I think also even Martin Lawrence used to do the same. You could find he's a man at the same time a woman. Because I was thinking, remember, in whether it was Madea or The Diary of a Mad Black Woman, Tyler Perry was talking to his ego, his female ego, and he was in the male ego, and they were switching, and the way they switched the characters, it's like they were in the same room and it's the same person talking to you. It's beautiful, and that is different. And so what I'm trying to say is that you can actually be bipolar and sane. You can actually be multipolar and sane, but what I mean by bipolar, that bipolarity is not the same to the mental disorder of bipolarity, because the mental disorder of bipolarity is whereby you're not in control of your bipolarism. You see, this is why when doctors or psychiatrists mostly, they do mental health assessment, they do it to make sure that, is this person insane or sane? Because they are very clever, sane people. Yes, very. They can even play all sides of a situation. And you can just wonder, what is happening here? So sometimes it's seen as madness, but it's actually brilliance. Some people are very brilliant in doing many things, and that's why actors are like that. You know, they are able to act roles. There are some actors who are very good at acting different roles. You know, they can act a woman, they can act an old man, they can act a young child. Have you seen most cartoons? They have it's older people who are making sounds like children. They don't tell children to do those cartoons because the voiceovers, the children are not mature enough to create very strong conversations that these cartoons do. So that's how you should understand the acting scene in America. Now, I was still on the American bipolarity, and this came to me because I was having a theological moment, a rhema, word, a revelation from the Word of God. As I told you, I'm a scientist who still can listen to faith, teachings, and religion of all religions. I read all religions and study them. And so when I read I was reading the scripture that was discussing about Jesus Christ and how he was talking about the blind man and why his blindness, when he was born blind, it was a sign of the glory of God on his life. And then I realized something, that Jesus told these people, that his disciples, that the man who was born blind not because he sinned or because his parents sinned, but because of the glory of God. So the blindness of that man was to show people the glory of God. Now, what is glory? Glory is beauty of God. Then I asked myself, who is God according to Christianity and the Bible? God is light. God is life. God is truth. Now, when I got to the understanding that God is truth, because Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So Jesus said he's also God. And it also says he's God because we are all gods. Jesus said we are all gods. Even the Psalms 82 verse 6 says we are gods. So what does that mean? He's the way, God is the truth, God is the life. And because we are all gods, we are ways, we are truths, we are life. So I focused on the word truth and I collapsed. Do you know what science is? Science is the study of truth, or science is truth. So what does this mean? God is truth. And then what does this mean again? It means that the blindness of that man showed the beauty of science and the beauty of truth, because God is truth, God is science, and the glory of science, the glory of truth, the glory of God. So God is science. And we'll do this teaching properly in the Queering Science, Theology, Philosophy, Spirituality channel. But generally, why am I trying to say this? I'm trying to say this to show you something. That since God is science, then scientists are the closest persons to God. The closest, yes. Scientists are the closest persons to God in the sense that they study God because they study science. That is what you need to understand. And another thing you need to understand, human beings are gods. So scientists also study human beings. That's why we have psychology, we have psychiatry, we have geneticists. All of these are the study of life, which is God. God is life. So we study. That's why chemists are very important. Everybody in the world is important because we are all gods, and therefore we are all science. And as I was saying in another video, we are all specimen of study. So we'll talk about this thing in the theological channel. But come back to bipolarity. Now look at this picture, how it looks. Very bipolar. And I got it because I was trying to study bipolar art. And there you see, bipolar. And that's what they're saying. Bipolar, wow, they couldn't describe it any better than this art. So this is, look at the bipolarity here. On the left, on our left, This lady has black hair, completely black hair. She is not colored, and she's basically black and maybe looks like a goth. And then you can see the spider web, and then you can see the spider, and you can see a heart bleeding, and you can look at the eyes. They are so black, and the lipstick is red. And are you seeing something very important in the picture as we stretch it? No teeth. She's not smiling, she's just opening the mouth. And you can see it's just dark colors. Of course, it's normal. Black color is a bit serious, and it shows a lot of seriousness, you know. Then on our right, she is very rainbow, you see, very LGBTQ. She has very many colors, multicolored. Look at the green. Have you noticed on this side, on the left, there is no other color. It's just one color. She's unipolar. But here, she's very multicolored. She has colors. She's orange, she's blue, she's pink, she's yellow, and then she has a bow tie. And then look at the eyeshadow. It's a star. And then the eyebrow, it is a different color from the star. It's a green eyebrow. And then the lipstick is different from the eyeshadow and the eyebrow. So the whole face has three colors. And then around her is ice cream and sweets, and a necklace is so multicolored. And then you can see the toys there, and you can see the all of the colorful, too colorful. And then you can see the hippie symbol of peace, you know. So this is what you need to understand. Now, to me, I always say America is bipolar, because you find, and some countries, yes, you find the reason of this is still yet to be understood. But one reason why they are like that is because of different ideologies that fill the country. There are two ideologies that fill the country. One ideology is secular, that does not pay attention to religious views, and another one is a religious ideology that pays attention to theism or belief in the supernatural and things like that. So that's what you need to understand about the American society. And even when America was set up as a country, it was basically two major camps. Those who are very serious about science. You know, Benjamin Franklin, who was a president, was a scientist president. And he discovered a lot about lightning, you know. And then Thomas Jefferson, extremely brilliant, even despite being a slave owner, because majority of the founders of America sadly owned slaves. Even despite their brilliance. And I can understand why they owned slaves. There was something that happened in Europe. Europe was going through a lot of discussion and philosophical discussions about the world. And this began in the Renaissance period. Because before the Renaissance happened, the European world was very Christian. It was unipolar. For information, Europe was not bifurcated. It was not double-headed. You know, it was single-headed with the it was still double-headed, because the double-headedness of Europe was seen in the temporal and spiritual order The belief in Europe is that the world has the temporal sword and the spiritual sword. And the temporal sword is held by the government, and the spiritual sword is held by the religious people, the religious elite. So that's how Europe has forever been ruled. Now, even though that happened, the double-headedness was in Christianity until the Renaissance and the Reformation. Because when the Reformation happened, Protestantism rose up, and when it rose up, it changed the views of politics and religion and science, because now many people most of the scientists stopped going to church because they didn't believe in God. They had read the Bible and they found that for them that religion was not necessarily a help to their scientific findings, so they became very atheist. And this is when you found René Descartes and Voltaire. Now, when you read about the science of those European philosophers who left Christianity, especially Catholicism, but they didn't even last in Protestantism, because they also found confusion in Protestantism and they gave up. So they were now becoming very scientific in the 17th and the 18th century. Now, when these guys became very scientific, they had their views about slavery. And for them, what I mean by slavery, it was the racism. They were trying to understand the black races. Because remember, the Dutch started walking to Africa in the 16th century, 16th, 17th century. The Dutch went to Cape Town. And then the Portuguese also came to Africa in the 15th century. So they came very early at that time, and they were meeting with black people, proper meeting with black people for the first time in those centuries. And when they met with them, because most of the times when these foreigners used to come to Africa, they would only be around the coastline. Now, when they went through the coastline, that's when they started meeting Africans. Then they understood the slavery that was happening in Africa. Remember, slavery started in Africa. Slavery has been everywhere in the world, including Africa. So there were African kingdoms that enslaved fellow Africans. So when America began as a colony, that's when they started getting slaves from Africa. And that's when the transatlantic trade happened. And not only did they happen, it's not only white Americans who are in the business, even Spanish Europeans who had colonized the Americas also were involved in slave trade. And, slavery was a cheap way of making money because you don't pay the worker. You just punish them with a lot of work without pay. And you let them stay wherever they want to stay, housing, let them sort themselves out. Anyway, it was very sad. But what happened is, what I'm trying to talk about is, the founders of America, they didn't really find any issue with slavery because the philosophical thought about slavery was very, very simple. They didn't find they didn't find owning a slave to be a wrong thing, because even the Bibles of that time and the Quran, they were keeping slaves. Christians were keeping slaves. Jews used to keep slaves. Arabs kept slaves. So the philosophical thought at that time, it was not a problem, So that's why you find people like Thomas Jefferson could have slaves even though they were brilliant men. And that's why, to me, I always say, in America, blacks built America in their slavery. And nobody can take that away from them. You know, Michelle Obama even said that when she said about the White House. Look at how the White House is so beautiful. So beautiful. Not only do you praise the architect who was white, you also praise the builders who were black. You know, it was just, it's the best understanding of the unity of races, that all races can work together, and some races are very good at building. And when you look at the buildings, especially the buildings that were built in colonial America, antebellum architecture, you will be surprised. 90% of those buildings were built by black men. And my friend, when you see the architecture, it is beyond. My favorite architecture is antebellum. That is before the war, the Civil War. And you see the shape of the pillar and the colonnades. They built them exactly like the Romans and the Greeks did. Because you need to understand that architecture is not new. It has been in the world for thousands of years, and it was built by the Greeks and the Romans. Now, when the Greeks and the Romans also built those buildings, but they never used black people. So what am I trying to say? This is what I'm trying to say, that black people also have the same thinking capacity, if not, in some areas they're even better than whites, just like some whites are better in some certain areas than some blacks. So there is no inferiority complex. We are all gods. We are all divine. We are all powerful. And the more knowledge you have, whether you're black or white, the more powerful you are. And so, why did I have to say this? So now the founders, these founders of America, they were these ones who were very multicultural, very philosophical, and very secular. But there was the other group, the Puritans and the Pilgrims. These are immigrants who came to America for religious reasons, not for secular or economic reasons. The secularists came to America for economic and secular reasons, you know. They, you know, just to have trade, to build a new Europe. That's why it was called the New World. It's because they were building a new Europe. But the Christian immigration to America was actually, they moved to America for religious reasons. And those were, majority of them were British people who went to live in America, running away from King James, who happened to be a gay king, and they didn't like him for his lifestyle and everything that happened. So they ran away to set up a new, or to have a new place whereby they can worship their God freely, away from the sinful king. So when they went there, they carried a lot of, and you see, people who are very anti-sexual, especially in religion, they will set up systems that are extremely Puritan and extremely discriminatory. And this is what the Puritans did when they went to America. And the Pilgrims were better. They were not so bad. They were simple people, simple Christians. Of course, they're also running away from King James, but they were not as bad as Puritans. Puritans were very strict people. I have a feeling they had a lot of Calvinist ideology and theology, because Calvin was a very strict theologian. He wanted people to follow the Bible as if it's the law. You know, the law says this, you know, so we are going to do it. So Calvin was so strict that everybody in Switzerland, because that's where he was based, had to go to church on Sunday. It was a must. And if you don't go, you should be punished. It was even the law of the land. Even I remember Britain was struggling to pass a Sunday law, and it was rejected for a good reason. Yes, because it's now a multicultural society. I mean, people go to church anytime, they do whatever they want to do on any day. So you don't have to force people, you don't have to force businesses to be closed on Sunday in the name of we are a Christian country. No, let people be free. That's Calvin. Every time you see a religious edict telling people not to do work on a certain day because it is a Christian holiday or like Sunday, that's a Calvinist thinking there. So this is what happened in America. So both these groups, the secularists and the religious persons, went to America, and then when they were united, when they got tired paying tax to the British kingdom, to the kingdom in England, they got tired paying them tax. Reason being, they were becoming very successful, of course, sadly, through slavery, and they were making a lot of money. Plantations were now being built, houses, people were getting wealthy. So Britain realized, we now have a very nice colony, very rich one. So they wanted to keep, so they demanded tax from the American settlers. Actually, it was a settler colonialism, because these British settlers went to stay in America, and they were still citizens, subjects to the kingdom, because at that time kingdonomics was very, very strong in Britain, because the people believed that you are a subject of the kingdom, so we demand taxes from you. So these Americans, or these white people who were there, got angry, and they said, no, we cannot pay tax to a king who is so far away. He doesn't even rule us. We are the ones who have built this country, quote unquote, and we are taking care of ourselves. We don't need any king. We don't need the army of the king to protect us. No, we're not going to pay tax. So when the king had this, he declared war. And that's when he came and invaded America. And the Americans also fought. And you had the famous Boston Tea Party. You see, when the war had to take place in Eastern America, because that's the closest part to UK. And they fought. And after fighting, the Americans won. It was called the American War of Independence. And George Washington became the first president of America. Of course, as I've told you in my other studies, president is basically still listens to a king, but what he does is that it's an independent country, so they don't pay taxes to that king. So they only have relations, cordial relations together, but they don't have economic relations together, in the sense that you don't pay tax. The most important thing in colonialism is not the laws, it is taxation. When you pay tribute to a colonialist, let me tell you, that is the heart of colonialism. The moment you stop paying tribute, you are truly independent. And that's what happened to America. They stopped paying tribute to UK. Now, so have you seen the story? These guys, the secularists and the religious people, united to fight against the king, and they succeeded. Now, America now was beginning to become bipolar, because the secularists were going on and the Christians now were getting power. Now, when the Christians were getting empowered, there were what you call Christian settlements and the secular settlements. And some of the settlements in America were based on the religion you belong to, Protestant, and then the Catholics in Louisiana, because the French took Louisiana and most of them were Catholic, and of course that's New Orleans down there, Florida. That's what happened. Now America was becoming very divided, and then remember the witch hunts in Salem, all of these things, they were being pushed by the religious right that was forming up in America. Then something sad happened that led to the real bipolarity of America. The slavery movement, anti-slavery movement rose, and it spread like wildfire all over the world. And this confused America because most of the plantations, before we get there was the Industrial Revolution that catapulted the Western world to great heights of economic power. And this revolution also went to America because the things that were being made in Europe were also being made in America. And the wheel and coal and all of these things, everything, whatever was happening in Europe was transferred directly to America. This is why most factories, the first factories were in Europe and then they were built in America. America's job was just to be the source of the raw material and food to Europe. Now, then Americans, because of independence, they now decided to build factories and industries. So when they built these industries, the industries were based in Northern America, the northern states. Most of the northern states built industries, and then the plantations were in southern part of America, the Bible Belt. So what did it mean? This meant the black people lived in the southern part because all black people in America at that time were slaves. So they only stayed in plantation states where they had to plant and all of these things and do the digging. But in the northern side of America, it was the industrialists, or the people who, the money, you've planted cotton, then you sell the cotton to Europe, you get money, then you put the money in a bank that is in the northern state. This is why most northern states in America are very rich. It's because they gained from the slavery economy, the slave economy. Now, when the anti-slave movement now rose, the northern side of America had to accept, and surprisingly, they were Republicans. That's the weird thing. The Republican Party was mostly in the northern side of America, and Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. And so what happened is when they studied the situation and the reason why the anti-slavery had to happen and the abolition movement, and most of the learned people lived in Northern America because even Washington, D.C. was in the northern side, So these people were well read. Remember, the secularist tradition of study is to read very many things, not just the Bible. But the religious point of study is to study your religion and not science. So this is what happened. The southern part of America, the Bible Belt, that's why it's called the Bible Belt. Most churches were there, and it was the home of slavery. And this is why even most black people who are religious, they are from the Bible Belt, And I'm very shocked. I always wonder, most blacks still live in the Bible Belt. It tells you how the poverty was so grinding that even after emancipation, emancipation had to happen because the slaves could not even leave. If you leave the slave state, you are killed. You know, so you just have to stay. It is like immigration. You know, most refugees who don't have money, they can't move. They'll just stay where they are. It has happened everywhere in the world. Do you know, even in Israel, during the Babylonian captivity, do you know whom the Babylonians left in Israel? The poor. The poor were left in Israel. That's what happened. And this is what happens even that's what happened in America. The poor black slaves, especially the ones who couldn't run away, and if they tried, they would be killed, they stayed in the Bible Belt. So when Lincoln emancipated them, I'm doing very summarial history, so don't worry. It's a lot, and the books are too many, but I'm just summarizing. When Lincoln emancipated the black people, they saw no need to move, so they stayed in the South. But now when they stayed in the South, remember the war ended, the Civil War. But the sentiment to have a slave did not end. That's what needed. The ideology that you need to have a slave did not leave. So what happened is Ku Klux Klan was created. And remember, the president who delivered the blacks was a Republican. So those who are not in the Republican Party joined the Ku Klux Klan, and this is why people don't like people who are originalists. They don't like the Democratic Party for its bad history, that it used to side with Ku Klux Klan, which opposed Catholics, Jews, and blacks. So that's what happened. So the South was now still fighting segregation and discrimination, because even though the war had ended, the whites who owned slaves were still there, and you can't kill them. And now you can't kill a black person for not being a slave. So they now got their rights slowly. Now, next thing, what happened is, as time went on, the Republican Party now started morphing, because World War I happened and World War II, and that's where the Republican Party changed. And even people wonder, I was also asking myself, the Roosevelt presidency is very weird. He was a Democrat, but at that time, America was so segregated. And that was the beginning when the Democratic Party started changing, and it became more and more scientific, and then it started shedding off its racism, and the racism was shed off. But weird enough, the Republican Party now became very religious, and religious Republicans are best found in the Bible Belt, where slavery happened. So now that's how the Republican Party is, like they exchanged roles. So the Bible thumpers left the Democratic Party to go to the Republican Party, and the scientists left the Republican Party to go to the Democratic Party. So that's what happened. There was an exchange, and we'll do another video about that exchange when it happened. It was a gradual one. Now, this is where we are in America. And America now has the bipolarity of the religious thought, religion that is anti-science. Because not all religions are anti-science. That's what you need to understand. And I've just told you this video is about God is science. So not all religions are against God. Yes, because God is science. And I'll explain why I say God is science. Because science is truth. God is truth. What is truth? Truth is a person is gay, naturally. It's truth. Yes, it's very true. Nothing, to do with evil spirits. Yes, it's truth. Another truth is the earth is not flat. That's the truth. That is science. It is proven. And one way to know the earth is not flat, look at the moon. It's spherical. Look at the sun. It's spherical. All these bodies, celestial bodies, they are called. The earth is also a celestial body. It's a heavenly body. Contrary to what people think, the earth is also in the heavenly realms. So the earth is also a celestial or a heavenly body. All of these bodies are spherical. For one reason, they are able to be suspended in the ether. Because remember in the other video I was telling you, it's so weird that we are in a ball that is not falling down. It is rotating around the sun, which is also a ball. Most stars are balls of gases. And I was even doing another study of the planets and realized there are only 4 terrestrial planets. That is Earth, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. The rest of the planets, 5 of them, are not terrestrial. Why are they not terrestrial? They are filled with gases. They are gaseous, spherical bodies. So, if you study astronomy, it means that the gaseous celestial bodies are shaped to be spherical by the matter that surrounds them. So we should even do a study, who shaped the earth to be what it was? Who shaped the moon? What is this shaping that happened? Because how is it that gaseous bodies can be spherically shaped, like the sun is a spherical body filled with photons? And I believe these are gases, because the sun is a star, and all stars have gases. But how is it that these things what shaped them? So these days we are, as I said last time, this 2019 is the year of studying cosmology and astronomy. And we're going to be doing that. So now, let's go back to America, come back to Earth. America's problem is, and some countries, is the bipolarity. The fact that the country is divided between religious people and secularists. And not just religious people and secularists, pro-science and anti-science. And not just pro-science and anti-science, moralists, exclusive moralists and inclusive moralists. An exclusive moralist is a person who his view of abortion must be followed by everybody. And the inclusive moralist is a person who he may not support abortion, but understands that there's somebody who supports abortion. Somebody may need an abortion. So the inclusive moralist says it's okay, let abortion be allowed because there's somebody, abortion is going to help somebody. Yes, you see, the problem people don't discuss about abortion is why does it happen? Yes, there are very many reasons why people do abortion. Number one, it's an unwanted pregnancy. And you can remove it early. Yes, unwanted pregnancies can happen through rape, through condom busts. So to save you the crying you will have when you have a baby, and also humanity. There are some women, because of rape, when they go through rape, they have a very hard feeling about the whole ordeal. So imagine you have a child, because you're not allowed to abort, you have that child. And every time you look at that child, it's a reminder of what you went through, you know. And then the child grows up and says, "Mommy, who is my daddy?" She can even cry. Yes, because she doesn't want to tell the child that daddy is a man, a man who is bad. He's called a rapist, you know. And she can't even use the word daddy. You're joking. So that's what people need to understand about the abortion, why people do abortion. It's to avoid those psychological trauma, because now the child will grow with trauma because the father is a bad man, and the mother will go through an ordeal like, every time I'm seeing this child, I just remember what happened to me. So you abort for the issues of having an ordeal like rape. Then, another reason is because of science, we are able to predict complications to pregnancy. Yes, they are what you call ectopic pregnancies. They are pregnancies whereby instead of the child growing in the uterus, the child grows on the fallopian tube. Thanks to science, we are able to know this. Before that, women used to die in childbirth. Do you know why? One reason why women are becoming more than men in the world? One reason is, apart from chemical ingestion, the foods we are eating that are making us have more X chromosomes than Y. Yes, it's understandable. It is also because we have scientific tools and instruments to check on the women's pregnancy and know whether she's in danger. Yes. So that's why women are now surviving and their children are surviving. It's because there is science. You can do ultrasound, you can do everything. Do you know Ireland allowed abortion? A Catholic country called Ireland. The most beautiful country. We'll even do a series of countries. Yes. Because every country is unique. Ireland is the most beautiful one. Because they have allowed gay people to marry and they have allowed abortion. Now, how they allowed abortion was very interesting. The lady had found out she had complications during her pregnancy, and she went and told the hospital. And the husband told the hospital, "It seems we'll have to terminate this pregnancy because my wife is going to die." And the Catholic hospital said, "No, we do not conduct abortion because it is against our policy, and that is our religion." The man pleaded, and the man was an Indian Irish. And he pleaded and told them, "No, you people, you have explained to me the science. She has a problem. This is going to kill her." And they said, "No, it's okay. Let her just be strong. We don't allow abortion." Do you know what happened? The woman died. The beauty of it is that it is recorded that the man had begged for an abortion. And I think if I'm not wrong, he even sued the hospital because they had seen a problem. And then he told them, "Terminate the pregnancy so she can survive." And they said, "No, let her just go on with it." You see, so that's what are we trying to say. Abortion helps people with those problems. And people think that when you allow abortion, it means everybody is going to abort. No. It is for those who need it. That's why you legalize it. Same to LGBTQ rights. It does not mean when you allow LGBT people to be free, it means everybody is going to be gay. It's a very silly notion in the world. Very silly notion. Yes, you allow people to be who they are, not because of their number, but because they exist. I always tell countries, even if you have 2 gay people, even one, you should make sure they are not attacked by the law. Yes, it is that. It's not, the issue is not about number. The issue is about, do we have that person in our midst? If we do, that person should not be criminalized against. Because injustice against one person is injustice, is equivalent to injustice against 1 million people. Yes, injustice against one person is the same as injustice against 1 million people. That's what I always tell the religious conservatives that are not standing in LGBTQ rights. It is a justice issue. It's like saying killing blind people. Do you see what happened in Nazi Germany? Do you know why they killed Jews? They killed them because they believed in the religious interpretation of the death of Jesus Christ, that Jews were the killers of Jesus. So they killed them. Just like that. And I was saying, people kill powerful people. Yes. People kill powerful people. Today is Martin Luther King Day. Do you know why he was killed? He was powerful. That is why he was killed. As simple as that. He was too powerful, and if they let him go on, he was going to do great change in America. Do you know he was the first Obama? Yes. He was the first Obama. And that's what they did. They killed him. And look at Obama. How many death threats did Obama get? Yes. Many. Very many. Yes. The records are there. So, what does this tell you? People, they kill powerful people. Do you know why presidents are protected? It's for that reason. They are powerful. And the work they do is so powerful in a country that it can affect somebody. That's why presidents are protected. That's why people in power are protected, because they are powerful. And this is why I'm saying Jews were killed, but it was a very bad action. How can you kill the person who is building your economy? You see, that's why even killing a president is madness. This is the person who is helping you, putting your country in order, and you're killing them. So when the Nazis killed Jews, it was weird. These are the people who built your economy. They owned most banks. They are rich. What was the problem? You see what madness can do to a nation and a region? That's what happened. So you have to understand. That's why I am of the view psychiatrists and psychologists need to call things like homophobia, transphobia, anti-Semitism, racism, all of them mental illnesses. After doing a mental assessment of all racists, all homophobes, all transphobes, and then so that we know those who are, there's some people who peddle propaganda to kill people. Yes, they are sane, but they are peddling. So that's what I'm trying to say. Mental assessment to be done by all people. I was so shocked that in Germany, the far-right movement is being led by a lesbian. And I was like, what? And this is what has happened to most of the world, sadly. The bifurcation of many minority groups. Bipolarity. And ever since 2016, the Trump presidency has really shown us the bipolarity of society. Look at the shutdown. Do you know it is so long? It's because of bipolarity. Every side is supporting Democrats. One side is supporting Democrats. The other one, Republicans. the bipolar America is really going through hell. I don't want to use that word hell. It's going through crisis, chaos, because these are two sides that cannot agree. You see, that's what you need to understand that's happening. And what am I trying to say? Ever since 2016, the LGBT community was also divided. Now you have LGBTQ persons who are conservative fighting LGBTQ persons who are liberal. You see, that's bipolarity. And then you have religious institutions that are pro-LGBT and religious institutions that are anti-LGBT. Yes. In the Catholic Church, the liberal ones and the conservative ones. So what's going to happen? This is what's going to happen as we end this video. When you have bipolar, what do? You go to the doctor and they assess your situation and they try and help you. Of course, mental health is very hard because the best they can do is just reduce the consequences or the effects of the disorder. But brain diseases, sadly, are very hard to deal with because of the nature. It's very deeper than any other disease. So you can't really do away with mental disorders. The only thing you can do is reduce them, reduce their effect. And that's what's going to happen to America. But politically, we'll have the Hegelian dialectic. That's what's going to happen. There will be a clash. There will be a big clash between the two sides that will lead to the creation of a new system. That's what's going to happen. You see what happened in America? Before America became independent, it was bipolar. It had the colonialists versus the anti-colonialists. Then they tried to live together. They tried. It didn't work. They fought each other. And that's what led to the American War of Independence, and they split, and the kingdom left America. And now America became unipolar, or the bipolarity had reduced, the colonialists had gone. So that's what's going to happen in America. Again, the Civil War, why did it happen? It was bipolar. People who supported slavery and people who didn't support slavery. They had to fight, and they fought. And then when after the end of fighting, the side that won the war is the one that went on with the country. Went on shaping America to be more kind to black people. Now, America is in another war, and it's going to happen. Yes, this government shutdown is the war. And one person is going to win. And that person who is going to win is going to shape America for the rest of the century. Yes, that's what I'm going to. It has to. It is going to happen. That's what I'm seeing. There is no other. You see what's happening in Europe? The same thing. The multiculturalists are fighting the monoculturalists. And one side has to win. We don't know which one. But scientifically speaking, the multiculturalists will win. Yes, because that is the sanest and most scientific position. Monoculture is not scientific. Yes, that's what people need to understand. Sadly so. We need each other from all races. Yes, we need each other. So that's what's going to happen. For me, scientifically speaking, the multiculturalists will win. Even in America, they will win. Because if the monoculturists, that is the nationalists, want to win, they have to chase away everybody who is not like them. And that's the end of America, if they do that. That's why I've already said America needs an immigration system that is so open that they will have 1 billion people within the next 3 years. come and tell me whether America will be poor. By no means America will be a rich country by far and will pass China, because they will now have human capital. That's what I'm telling you. China is rising partly because of human capital. Nigeria is rising partly because of human capital. Do you know Nigeria, people are still poor, but it's the second richest country in Africa. Now, what happens when all of them now become rich, or 70% become rich? My goodness, Nigeria will catapult. It will go because they have human capital. So that's what I'm telling the people, like America, that countries that have potential. I love America. It's a very good country. It's very multicultural. There's a lot of liberty to do many good things. Yes, I love America, and we do not want it to go down. By no means. I prefer America to China. China is very police state. Yes, very police state. I prefer America. There's liberty. You can say what you want to say. You can do what you want to do. You can have sex with whomever you want to have sex with. Of course, consensual sex when I say sex. So that's good. I love America for that. Very, very creative society. But sadly, the bipolarity that is there has to lead them to a war situation, and the best side will win. And when that side will win, then the country is going to take that good route. That's why, yes, 2020 is going to be the mother of all years. Yes, prepare for that. It's going to be, and not only 2020, 2019 is already the mother of all years because of the government shutdown. One reason why America is not, there is that deadlock, is because if Trump gets to build the wall, the Republicans have won the second term. Because Trump is going to be seen to be a winner. And if the Democrats do not allow him to build, the Democrats will be seen to be very strong. That is what has happened to America. So that 2020, are you seeing how many Democratic presidential candidates are rising? Yes, because they are smelling the coffee. They are smelling the coffee. You see how the shutdown is even affecting Trump in a big way. Because if he doesn't stop it now, government workers will not vote for him. That is the danger the Republicans are in. So, watch out and see America. Okay, that is all we can say today. We will see you later. We were discussing the art of mental disorder, and this is the bipolarity being spoken in art form. Thank you for joining us. We will discuss more next time.